The Forgotten Warriors. Eskaminzin crouched low behind a rock, scanning the open desert with eyes sharpened by countless battles under the blazing Arizona sun. The heat was unforgiving, but his spirit burned hotter, tempered by loyalty and a fierce desire to protect his people's land. He listened as Ista whispered of doubts, questioning why they were aiding the U.S. Army in battles against their own kin. Nantan, the U.S. officer assigned to their unit, had always treated Eskaminzin with respect, though respect alone was not enough. Eskaminzin had once believed Nantan's promises of peace and protection for their lands in exchange for loyalty. But whispers of betrayal were spreading among the scouts, unsettling even the most steadfast, like Eskaminzin himself. The army had assigned them to scout Apache land, promising it would only strengthen their claim, not tear it away. Yet, as Eskaminzin looked out over the dry, red-stained earth, he wondered if he'd been blinded by hope. Ista urged him to think of their families, the villagers waiting to see if the scouts would return in peace or anger. Every time he returned to his people, Eskaminzin saw the weary eyes of elders who'd endured too many broken promises. Trusting the army had once seemed like a way forward, but now, the path looked more like a cliff's edge. Nantan approached with news, his face grim. There'd been an unfortunate misunderstanding that needed the scouts' intervention. The soldiers had overstepped, occupying Apache land without warning, sparking new hostilities they expected the scouts to resolve. Eskaminzin clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of their deception settle like a stone in his chest. Nantan's words were full of apology, but his eyes betrayed his loyalty to orders over friendship. With a heavy heart, Eskaminzin relayed Nantan's message to the other scouts, who grumbled with barely concealed rage. Ista's eyes flashed with defiance, voicing the question in everyone's minds, was loyalty worth this cost? The scouts' loyalty had been tested before, but this felt different. This betrayal struck deeper, to their very core. Eskaminzin knew that turning back would mean retaliation from both sides, leaving them cornered. The next morning, they rode out, but instead of leading the soldiers, Eskaminzin took the scouts on a separate path. In the silence of dawn, he made a decision: they would protect their people, even if it meant going against the army. They halted near a canyon, and Eskaminzin gathered his scouts, his voice carrying a new determination. "We defend our land, our way," he declared, feeling the familiar fire of resistance flicker within. Ista's eyes gleamed with agreement, her voice echoing his conviction as she pledged her loyalty to the Apache. The scouts devised a plan, utilizing the land they knew so intimately to gain the upper hand in coming battles. Their knowledge of the terrain gave them a formidable advantage, and they prepared traps, anticipating the army's moves. Hidden among the canyons, they waited, silent as shadows, ready to strike in defense of their homeland. The army's first patrol entered the canyon unaware, a line of soldiers marching to their own trap. The scouts struck swiftly, disabling the patrol without taking a single life, leaving the soldiers shaken and confused. Eskaminzin sent the patrol back with a warning, a final chance to avoid bloodshed if they respected Apache land. Days passed, and more soldiers came, this time in greater numbers, unwilling to heed the warning. Eskaminzin and the scouts became relentless shadows, using guerrilla tactics to evade capture and inflict losses. Nantan watched from afar, torn between his orders and a grudging respect for Eskaminzin's skill and resolve. Reports of the scouts' victories spread, and some soldiers began to question the wisdom of fighting such tenacious foes. The canyons became the scouts' fortress, each rock and crevice a weapon in their hands, each path a hidden trap. Ista proved invaluable, her strategies turning each skirmish into a victory, her determination unwavering. Eskaminzin saw the scouts' morale rise as each successful ambush brought them closer to reclaiming their pride. Supplies ran low, but the scouts adapted, relying on knowledge passed down through generations to survive. The army grew frustrated, its forces stretched thin by battles against an enemy they could not corner. One night, Nantan snuck away from camp to meet Eskaminzin, his face lined with the weight of betrayal. He admitted the army's plans to seize Apache lands permanently, his loyalty torn between duty and respect. Eskaminzin listened in silence, his heart heavy, but the knowledge only fueled his resolve to continue fighting. He offered Nantan a chance to leave the army, to join them, but Nantan hesitated, bound by a soldier's code. Nantan's parting words were laced with regret, knowing that the fight would only grow bloodier from here. Eskaminzin returned to the scouts, sharing Nantan's confession, which only steeled their resolve further. Together, they prepared for the army's next advance, vowing to defend every inch of land they held dear. Skirmish after skirmish, they held their ground, using tactics the soldiers could barely comprehend. Apache land was alive with resistance, each victory a testament to their strength and resilience. Despite mounting losses, the army continued its campaign, refusing to abandon its goal of conquest. Eskaminzin felt the toll of the endless fighting, yet he could not waver, knowing the future of his people depended on them. Ista was relentless, her spirit unbroken, inspiring the others to keep fighting against overwhelming odds. Word of their defiance spread beyond the desert, and soon, sympathy for the Apache cause began to grow. Politicians in Washington heard of the resistance, questioning the cost of continuing the brutal campaign. Finally, with public opinion shifting, the army was forced to negotiate, a truce offered out of necessity. Eskaminzin and his scouts met the negotiators with heads held high, knowing they had earned every concession. The truce brought a temporary peace, but Apache land was still under U.S. control, a bitter compromise. Eskaminzin looked over the desert one last time, feeling both victory and sorrow settle deep within. They had won the fight, but the land was changed forever, its freedom now bound by paper and politics. Eskaminzin's heart ached as he led the scouts home, knowing they had done all they could for their people.